So in my example, I will be covering DDL, DQL, DML operations. I have created a conceptual design. So let's say you walked into a shopping mall. So we have like a Scarborough Town Center, just for an example, and you want to find a particular store. So that particular store, once you enter into the mall, it shows you on the map when you touch it, and it shows you what shop details and where it is located, right? So we are trying to create this particular model. To create that, we actually need an RDBMS. In my case, I will be using Postgres. So let's start the Postgres. All right, so I have now logged into my local PGadmin 4, which is Postgres database for this example. So currently, we will have a quick walkthrough. So this is how exactly it looks. You have a server, then you have, databases. So in this case, I have six databases already created for my practice. And now what we're going to do is for our this model, we will create a database. So I'll start. We can either use the query here, or I can also use my Jupyter Notebook. That will be my third party, right? So for this example, let's use my Jupyter Notebook, and I just connected to my Jupyter, and this is my. We can either use the query here, or I can also use my Jupyter Notebook. That will be my third party, right? So for this example, let's use my Jupyter Notebook, and I just connected to my Jupyter. So here, the first thing what we'll do is we have to import our class to connect to our local database. So PsychoPG PG2 is the class we'll be using for connecting to our local database. Now for connection, let's open a connection string, and here I will be connecting to my local. So we will need a host, then we will need a user, and then we will need a password. Okay. So host. So it ran, and now we are connected to my local Postgres session. So now what we have to do is let's execute some queries. Okay. All right. So here it ran successfully. There is no errors. So we will check whether here on my local session whether we have a new DB created. So we do have a new DB created called mall. Okay, so that is good. Now we will connect to this new database, and then what we'll do is we will start creating the tables which we needed for our purpose. So this is linked. Now let's start creating the table. So the first table, so execute. All right. So let's write the SQL query. We have the create table, and if not exist, that we will do, because if it is exist, we don't want to create it. So first table is the center table, that is here. So let's call it locator. Okay, and the fields would be location ID, that would be my primary key. So that, let's say in type primary key. Okay, then next field I want is, so let's go to the next line. Okay, so next field, shop ID we can give for, the shop. And then we have the address ID for the address table. So that also int is fine. And let's give not null, right? And yeah, so that's it. Let's see. All right, so perfect. So this is our first table created. Let's copy this and create the other two tables. Tables created. Perfect. Now there is one problem which I see. Here on the locator, when we created, we don't really need the location ID, as this shop ID and address ID could become our primary key. So now let's use another DDL operation, uh, which is the alteration command, which we saw in the last lecture. This spelling mistake constraint. Okay, here it is. And so we have fixed that issue. Now moving on, what we need is, now, because we have just created these tables and we don't really have any joinings between them, like this table, uh, there is no relationship right now because there is no foreign key. So let's start adding two constraints. All right, so now we have the perfect relation created. Now what we can do is we can start comfortably moving ahead with our DML operations. So just before that, I just want to check a quick thing, whether this conceptual model is actually turned into my physical model or not. So for that, what I will use it. Okay, so there is a tool called PGModeler. So I'm using that. Okay, so it's running right now. Okay, meanwhile, I can show you if our tables are created. So let's go to the mall. All right, so now we go to the schema. So now we go to the tables and let's see actually, yes, so we have three different tables created. Now let's go back to the modeler tool and all right, so let's go to the modeler tool. I don't want to update. All right, so what we can do using the modeler tool is I'll just connect to my local DB and try to see the model which we just created for mall, and I'll try to import it. So it is importing. So we just want to connect the schema part. Let's import it. All right, so it's being imported. All right, so this is what it actually shows me. Like this is how our physical model has been created. Now what I will do is, as our uh, logical conceptual model, the locator was in the center. So this is how exactly now it shows. So basically, this is what your we planned it, right? This is what we planned, and this is what the results, right? So we have the locator. Locator connects to shops and address. Shop ID connect to the shop. Address ID connect to the address. Also, because this is just I created for example, we can further normalize it. I agree. We are just like going through the example. That's why I just created simple one. So I am not performing any further normalizations into this. So this is where we have it right now. So that's fine. Let's move on to our DML operations.